Welcome, everybody. This is Chain Chatter. So if you didn't know, we do these every Wednesday at noon Eastern. We, talk about all things cross-chain, Thorchain, Maya, Chainflip, and all the amazing things happening in the cross-chain industry. Last week we had Kenton on, and we talked a lot about Thorchain bonds and the initiative from the community to raise the bond. How bonds in general have been going and securing the Thorchain network. And then this week we've got LeoDex, which is I'm really excited for this one because I think a lot of people have questions regarding TCY, and we were kind of talking about how Thorchain is a massive ecosystem already, and now you're introducing something like TCY, which obviously is going to bring a lot of questions. So I'm really excited to just dive really deeply into TCY and everything related to it, and hopefully answer a lot of questions that I think people have had for the last couple of weeks and have definitely been mounting. And as of kind of the last 24 hours, I started to see a lot of UIs post that they're going to be supporting TCY and some kind of teasers of TCY in general. So I think the conversations about it are definitely going to heat up, and I would love to just dive in deep on all these different topics. So without further ado, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? And for someone who may not know who you are, which would be really surprising if they're in the cross-chain space, maybe just a quick intro about yourself, how you got into cross-chain and what you do.
For sure. Well, first off, I want to apologize in advance. I'm at my parents' house today to visit for Easter. So if you hear somebody screaming, crying, or giggling, it's my nieces. But I think I've controlled the space I'm at to be able to hopefully be noise free. I'm Alex. I'm from the Maya Protocol team. I was one of the co-founders at Maya. Maya is a friendly fork of Thorchain, arguably a competitor to Thorchain. But we were always in this to bring redundancy to the space. We care about cross-chain. We think it's just very, very important. And we got involved 4 years ago already to work on Maya, the fork, and launching and everything. We launched actually 2 years ago to mainnet and have been processing swaps ever since. Now over $2 billion of historical volume. Still, a lot to grow, but I'm proud of where we're at so far. And some people called us a little bit, copycats and money grabbers when we started launching. But I think that tag has slowly dripped away, given that we launched fairly. And in the moment of need, in Torch's moment of need, we actually gladly and happily went back and helped Thorchain out. And this is what we'll be discussing today, guys. But our mission of bringing redundancy to cross-chain is real, and that's what guided that decision. Redundancy is not redundancy if it's just you, even if even if you win, but you're now the only one standing, you lost. So we really care deeply about the cross-chain space. We care deeply about Thorchain and the ecosystem and the engineers building here, and that would have been a waste and a pity if it went down the drain. So we got involved with Prop 6 and TCY. Props to CryptoXD or Pedro from Thor Wallet. He's actually the one to baptize the token TCY, his earlier proposal. Mine simply fix a bit of the kinks here and there on how to make it permissionless and kind of more practical and easier to code, given my experience in Maya node and the code base that exists. So that's kind of me and why we're here. And happy to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. And one thing I want to ask you about is before we kind of dive into the details, and I've seen a lot of people say this, like, you are an incredibly humble person that's building in this space. who, you know, very clearly through your actions, not only from what you say, but your actual actions, you know, wants this space to succeed. So from a more kind of philosophical standpoint, you know, before we get into the details, you know, why have you done all of this? Why have you, and you kind of mentioned a little bit, but I just want you to go a little deeper on it. You know, why have you kind of gone out of your way and, you know, taken your, you know, valuable time, you know, because you're obviously super busy building Maya, you know, to work on Prop 6, to work on TCY. Could you dive into you know, a little bit more detail of why you think redundancy is so important and why, you know, you stepped in and you know, are saving Thorchain with this?
All right, I think we have time, right? I don't need to be succinct.
Yeah, no, you're good. Take all the time you want.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. Like, why am I here? I think it deserves a longer answer. Um, so, me and our co-founders, we actually already have stuff going on in real life. We love scalability and startups and stuff like this, and we did want to get into the crypto space for the experience of it. But mainly, we're from Mexico. We're Latin Americans. Over here, you can get a dictator pop up in a matter of weeks, and you can have, you know, a country become populist overnight, and you can have property be expropriated pretty quickly, your currency get inflated to death pretty quickly, your freedoms taken away from you pretty quickly, and you know, you don't have these huge governance structures, equality of income, and stuff like that to protect people. So that's on the one side. Like, people in the first world might be in it for the money. We are in it for uh, having a more predictable future, um, and have alternative technology that will allow us to keep what we already have. Not do more. You know, that's a second thing. That's nice too. So that's on the one hand. On the second hand, there in society there's always been, like, humanity more at large zooming out. There's always been centralizing and decentralizing forces. You know, when one part of the equation grows a lot, you get the Roman Empire, like this huge centralized uh, uh, entity. When they start going the other way, you actually have what might not be as spectacular as an empire, but it's actually a bit fairer to most people involved. And that's what you've had, you know, when we went back to more feudal types of states. You have a lord much closer to the peasant than our Roman emperor was to the slave in, you know, Egypt growing wheat. So obviously the conditions of people when government is smaller and people making the choices are closer to the pain and to the joy of the people they govern, uh, it's much better. And if that government can also be democratic, say Switzerland, awesome. But even if not, it's objectively better than these huge, bureaucratic, centralized, sensitive, insensitive democracies. So my problem today is that I started seeing a lot of technologies also. It's not only about crypto, but you also have AI, robotics, solar, satellite, you know, space business, all of that, and many of these can contribute to centralization or to decentralization, also depending on how they were born, not only about the technology, which is solar panels has a lot of potential to be decentralizing force for society because you need to bring gasoline every morning to have your cars run, but you just need to bring your solar panel once from China, and now you're good, right? The problem, though, is if only China makes them. So it's also not about the product or the technology you're building. It's also how its supply chain works. And that will also dictate how likely it is that this will be a decentralizing force that will have people closer to their governments, that will have more equality in people standard of living. And like, I'm not saying let's do communism. No, I'm a free market guy. I'm pretty much anarchist when I can. But I really do believe long term, a capitalistic, open society will yield more prosperity to many people. So how do we make sure that's the case and it is not captured by the few? And the thing is, we need to work on everything. If any of the pillars falls, it just makes it more likely to be more centralized. So then why am I in Maya? Because I love what crypto is doing. I love the white paper of Bitcoin, peer-to-peer electronic cash. It's beautiful. But then to move between them, and there's thousands of these chains, people use Binance. And what the hell are we doing? We're back to giving up control over economy, over finances. And you're back to square one if you're in the third world, or if you want decentralized forces to take root. Uh, because decentralized forces are necessary for permissionlessness, censorship resistance, privacy, all of these things. We need to have decentralization first if we want those outcomes to be achieved. So uh, that was a big problem I saw, and then I saw Thorchain, and I fell in love. It's what they built is honestly way ahead of its time. Uh, uh, a very well-oiled but also kind of rusty machine that's held together by sheer will and determination. And I just thought this is too important. There can't be just one permissionless cross-chain protocol. If you're flying a jet, you much rather it have two engines than one, right? So that's why we got to work. Redundancy and resiliency of the cross-chain space to be able to achieve the dream of permissionless decentralized money. You need this cross-chain system. This cross-chain system doesn't really need to be as decentralized as these other chains are. It's not trying to be money. It's a service. What it must keep is permissionlessness. That's its highest value. And if we achieve networks that can remain permissionless to transact between between blockchains, now you can achieve crypto being not just another bank, but actually a decentralizing force and a safe haven for developing countries. So that's why we're here.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that I love that you have like a much bigger vision about, what this space is and can be. And you have, this guiding mission, this North Star of something that's much bigger than just, hey, we want to, build a crypto project and launch a token and, get rich and insert the meme about how you're in it for the technology. I think one thing that's very clear about you is that you are actually in it for not, I wouldn't even say necessarily the technology, but you're in it for the, the kind of real world implications of what this technology means for, people in society. So I've always really appreciated that about you and the Maya team.
Thank you.
And really about this, this cross-chain space, what I really like is that it's, it's Dex versus sex. It's not, it's not us versus each other. And everyone's not trying to just monopolize, the small market cap that exists today. You're actually looking out to the, the broader space and saying, well, centralized exchanges are out there. And, I've believed this as well, that it is a threat to, Bitcoin and decentralization. And, I think a lot of us got into this space because of Bitcoin and, what it offers in terms of owning your money and having true freedom. But if you can't freely transact Bitcoin, whether it's trading to another crypto or just moving to another chain or anything, then that's not real freedom. You've got freedom of the thing, but you don't have freedom of the roads to access that thing. So that's one thing I've always loved about the cross-chain space. So now let's get a little bit into TCY. So, the kind of original idea behind TCY was, was born out of the need really to save ThorFi, or save Thorchain because of ThorFi would be a better way to put it. So, for the people that may not know much or may just have a really loose understanding, because I do see, people on X who say things about about ThorFi and ThorChain and how, it's insolvent. Could you just give a little breakdown of what exactly happened with ThorFi, and why was TCY, why did TCY become the best path out of what happened with ThorFi?
Yeah. So I'm going to try not to get very technical, but essentially you have ThorChain, and ThorChain has a monster cash flow because it achieved product market fit with streaming swaps, almost 2 years ago now. Now the problem though is before streaming swaps, there was a need to have deeper pools, because the deeper the pool, the cheaper the swap. Now, this is where Savers came from, and I'll delve into it a bit more. Then streaming swaps launched, and you had a second problem, which was economic security. You need to have these Rune collateralized bonds that node operators run because they're managing exogenous assets that blockchain doesn't control, right? You have Ethereum, you have Bitcoin, you have all of these in a vault. So you actually benefit from Rune price being higher. And you also had the desire to create economic activity and kind of a freedom technology of anybody can get a loan, right? And it's an excellent terms loan. And those two came together into what became ThorChain lending, which was no expiration, no liquidation, and the worst part, for at least the economic design, it was great if it had worked, was that the collateral was used to actually buy and burn Rune, with the, just thinking Rune is going to perform well. Now, the problem with both savers and lenders, it's they make this assumption: Rune will outperform the asset. If it didn't, it was problematic. The problem, though, with that is that people can use and abuse the system, and it could be abused because somebody could. You have the trading activity. Rune outperforms. Rune holder could have sold the top, and that actually leaves everybody else behind with less equity, marginally less, and it's very noticeable. But the earning of one person in a sufficiently short enough time frame is the loss of another. Now, I want to make sure I clarify that any economic system in a very short time frame, let's call it a block, 10 blocks, a minute, is zero sum. That said, in a long enough time frame, things are never zero sum. So that's actually something we'll use in a minute. But savers, the problem was you have Bitcoin, it goes into the pool. The Bitcoin is in the pool, but backed by Bitcoin and Rune. And if Bitcoin went up, what actually happened is it needed to take more of these LP units from the LPs to backstop the reserve out for the seed holders, the savers in reality. So that would actually siphon out money from LPs to be able to backdrop the savers when they would exit. And the problem is even that wasn't enough. And now we have savers that are owed more collateral than there actually is liquidity in the pool. But on top of that, you had lending, which was, remember I said, Bitcoin goes in as collateral, you get lent out dollars or whatever you like. Now you have to repay the dollars to get your Bitcoin back. But that Bitcoin wasn't held by the protocol. It was immediately sold for Rune. And now this Rune was burned. And if the Rune to BTC price was worse at the time of the repayment, it actually meant the protocol had to mint more Rune that it burned in the first place to be able to pay back that BTC. And even the collateral now was more than the TVL in the pool. So now you are insolvent. And there's a third problem, which is the availability of assets in the TVL, and this is what people don't get, is tied to Rune performance. So I've seen many people say, just let Rune dump and give everybody their collateral back. First off, your collateral isn't there anymore. It was 20 cents on the dollar for any person that remained. But second of all, if Rune performed worse, it would have been 15 cents, then 10 cents, then 5 cents on the dollar, and then zero. And why would Rune perform worse? Well, because who's going to be willing to pay the broken plates? the system was already in such a place where 30 of the 120 nodes exited. They were going to dump the rune. Rune holders were dumping the rune. We went back down to 99 cents very quickly. If it had continued, one of two things would have happened. Either TVA went to zero, or economic security would be so bad, nodes could have colluded to steal, even to kind of salvage something after they also lost. We have to also understand nodes are entered room at $6, $10. It's now at $1. They also lost. Everybody lost. So now, what to do? You have DLPs, they lost $100 million. Savers, they lost $100 million. Lenders, they lost $100 million. Nodes and rune holders had $500 million of equity wiped out in a month. What do you do now? And that's essentially what TCY aimed to solve, which is kick the can to the long term. And what did we say about the long term? It has a higher chance of being positive sum. It's not zero sum. So what if we could take 10% of the swap fees, tokenize it in the TCY token, give the TCY token to victims, create a pool, TCY room pool, and I'll let these claimers get their TCY and either hold it and get the room payouts or sell it. And since this TCY token is getting the 10% in perpetuity, it's worth something. And that something is what somebody will be willing to pay now to get in on the chance to get exposed to that 10% of swap fees. And that person wanting to get in now is providing the exit liquidity for the seller of the debt claim. And that debt claim has all the right it needs to sell at the point that they desire. They can say, look, 20 cents per dollar, I was fine with that all this time. Why did you guys not let me exit? 20 cents? Okay, go, thank you. But somebody can say, no, look, I need 50 cents. And nobody can make them sell below 50 cents. And every single player can decide. Because previous proposals, they had more fixed stuff and, we decided things for them. Here we actually give them as most autonomy as we possibly can give. And honestly, I think it's a fair deal. Everybody's got a haircut. DLPs were down 98 to 99% in the Bitcoin pool. They're now down like 90 to 92 since Rune versus BTC has improved. Rune price has stabilized. It's not dumping anymore. And TCY, which will be out next week, I really do think it's going to be at least at 20 to 30 cents, which already means it was better than just, magically freezing Torchain and giving people back what was left. So if we can get it to 20 cents, and now you have actually the opportunity to even do better, and you didn't have to kill the chain or the nodes or the root holders, I think it's a positive outcome. So that's what the idea is. We can delve deeper, but just on status, we worked the last 2.5 months on developing with my team. It's actually heavily inspired on the Maya token, which is on Maya protocol we launched fairly. We gave all of the cacao, which is our rune, away for free to everyone for zero money to us. People added LP to the protocol. They got the cacao side. They just had to hold the liquidity position for some while. But we have got nothing of it. What we have is the Maya tokens, which get paid 10% of the fees, and also in perpetuity. So it's the same. I know one question I spoiled myself a little bit will be, what learnings did you introduce in TCY from Maya?
Yep.
Quite many. We can talk a lot about that too. But basically, TCY took the learnings we had from that. Some knowledge I have about bankruptcies, the knowledge we have about the code base, and just, or voice and influence in the ecosystem to push it through. And I think it has a real shot of making affected users whole and give a new path for Torchain that might be better than what we thought, that we could have thought. So I'm excited for it. And again, it's all long term, which always makes things a bit more interesting. And I really wish we can help people. It's one more week. I'm a bit nervous. I hope the launch goes well. We tested everything we could test on a Magnet, Testnet, StageNet, smokes, simulation, smokes, we don't have smokes anymore, simulation test, rec test, everything. And I really hope it goes well because people deserve their sats back. So yeah, let's see how it rolls.
Yeah, I think it's been a really awesome process so far, and I think and this is going to be kind of a two-parter because I think we can cover both at the same time. The launch of TCY is really like the most equitable outcome that I think many of us can imagine, which is that it's like a lot of people will say, okay, well, all the people that originally had say one Bitcoin in the lending protocol, they lost their one Bitcoin, like they lost, right? So what are node operators, what are LPs, like what is everyone else losing in order for everybody to kind of have an equitable outcome in this? Because at the end of the day, like if one person loses and other people didn't lose, that's almost as good as one person winning and another person losing, right? So what I like about TCY is that it's a fair launch, and what you're doing is there aren't like these kind of stricter controls like other proposals had, where this is much more like variable and it's user choice driven, right? Everything's getting, and I saw a lot of people asking this too, like is some TCY getting released right away and then some later, and you said no, like everything goes live immediately, everybody can immediately buy all at the same time. And everyone can sell all at the same time. It's like maximal free market. So this kind of also, we can touch on, the equitable launch part of things as well, which is that, by giving TCY 10% of protocol revenue, that's actually coming from, the LPs and the bond providers who also would be getting that. Now, essentially, they're getting 90% of protocol revenue because the 10% is going to TCY. So I think that's a fair thing to touch on. But a big question I see, and more, I mean, a lot of times you wonder if it's like a bot trolling, but a lot of people say, well, who stole the assets, right? Like who ran away with all this Bitcoin, ETH, that was sitting in these vaults? Do you want to touch on that a little bit? Like, just talk about like, nobody came in and just said, okay, all this Bitcoin is mine. When you opened the position, what happened to your Bitcoin and what happened to it today?
Yeah. So, like, importantly, like, I really do think I feel for affected users, and I'm doing everything I can to help them. I've been working tirelessly for 3 months, but people also have to take a little bit of responsibility. You are investing in a DeFi cross-chain experimental space, and the code is open source. Everything was open source. There was nothing hidden. Everything is working like the code says it should work. And this code was audited, and the risks, I voiced concerns against both savers and lenders. Touching themselves, they paid a huge amount for a risk report that's online still now on lending about the risks and what could have happened if Rune didn't perform. And it's exactly what happened. So, like, number one, like, what happened was there for people to see, and I don't think you can then go blame and pin the wrongdoing on any one single person. Now, it was negligence or a mistake, or or just wishful thinking perhaps that got us there, and there's definitely things to be learned, and people that should feel accountable and be part of the solution. But this part of I was stolen from. Who stole from you? The economic design was faulty, very flawed, and that created the situation where some people benefited, some people lost unfairly. Who benefited? Swappers, some LPs that exited, root holders that exited at $12, a long list of people. And who got fucked? The guys that were left. Now, the problem is with all of this was Rune reflexivity. When Rune was performing well, and if Rune were performing well right now, everybody's actually made whole. So it's not like the money went anywhere. It's equity. It's like a company equity. Did Elon Musk steal $300 billion when Tesla stock went down? He did not. The market just repriced it, and if he had a loan with to have cars and it was secured by Tesla stock, that got fucked too. It's market dynamics, and it's a problem when it's a problem in a faulty design when you put economic assumptions that need to be met for you to succeed. They would typically be broken. So this required room to perform better against asset. People could bet on the opposite happening, and that's what happened. But there's not one person that sold the money. It just isn't there anymore. It's equity. It's value lost. And it happened over a couple months. It's value lost. Now, I do think you can have an argument that 10% is not enough, and that's a valid argument to try and make. The problem, though, is that 10%, I would call it the profit. The profit isn't as high as people think. The other 90% is actually cost of goods sold, because no LP or node will be willing to do the work for half. They will all leave, and now you have the same problem that we had before Prop 6. So you want to have something that's fair and can have a chance to make you whole, but not something too painful that will actually erase the ability to make you whole. We have to walk that fine line, and that's what the proposal is also walking. But I do want to stress there were 3 alternatives. Let things go to zero. You get zero. We could have tried to freeze the vaults and have the funds returned to people. You would have gone 20 cents on the dollar if you were a DLP saver or lender, whereas nodes and rune holders would have gone to zero as well. Or you could have this, where we all understand we're in the sinking ship together. We coordinate, we assign roles. Some people will go and take water out. Some people will put things so no more water comes in. Some people will, throw stuff overboard to make it lighter. And we try and get to the destination we all want to. But if here in the boat, you start just pointing fingers, you're going to go down with the ship too, man. Not only the captain. You might feel the captain is at fault for sinking the ship. And, maybe once we land, you can go and do that. But like right now, focus. We're on a sinking ship. We have to work together. And I think that TCY kind of puts the incentives aligned in the right direction, provided you're a reasonable person that understands, takes responsibility, you have some agency, you understand you have to get to work. I think it aligns everybody. And there's some people that still believe, why aren't we enjoying the cruise, and why aren't I already in my destination, and why am I wet? Well, shit happened, but we cannot change it unless we get to work. So that's kind of my point of view there.
Yeah. I think the sinking ship analogy is a good one, where it's like, the ship is sinking, it's taking on water. Are you going to stand there and yell at the person who you think is responsible for the ship taking on water? Or are you going to grab, a bucket and start, bailing out the ship? So I think that's a really, really good way to put it. So let's start getting into some of the details behind TCY. So you said it's coming next week. And, all the tests have been going well. I think a lot and kind of touched a little bit on how the value of TCY is that you get a 10% claim indefinitely on Thorchain's revenue. And Thorchain does churn out a ton of revenue because it's, processing a lot of swap volume. And, as the protocol grows, I think a lot of people anticipate the swap volume is only going to continue to grow in the future. If you look at the last couple of years as a lens into that, the swap volume's grown immensely.
60%. 60% in average per year. That I calculated
year over year. Yeah. So and that is an incredible, thing to own. Like if you were to look at a stock and say, wow, the revenues are growing 60% year over year, that's pretty incredible. So TCY is a claim on 10% indefinitely of that growing revenue. So that kind of gives it a lot of value on its own as kind of like a dividend token if you will. You've also talked about TCY buy pressure, and I think a lot of people get a little bit confused about that because they think, well, how can it have buy pressure? Can you dive into some of the details? I know you put out a tweet or an X post where you talked about unclaimed TCY and pooled TCY, protocol owned TCY. How do these things actually create buy pressure and in theory raise the value of TCY over a long period of time?
Sure. So okay. Right. So there's two components to a effective user that holds TCY to be made whole. There's what he's getting paid, and there's what TCY is worth. And the cool thing is they're a bit detached. You can get paid a lot, and TCY is not worth a lot for some reason, or conversely, or both do well or both do bad. Now the problem is there's two types of people: those that wish to exit fast, and those that are waiting. Those that want to exit fast, we actually want to help them. We want the toxic flows to be out and new liquidity, new willing, happy liquidity to come back in. So we want to give the best possible shot to the exiter at getting the best possible deal. And the thing is, for this exiter, the payouts are meaningless because she's not going to stick around 67 years to get paid, right? Nobody else will. Actually, the payout will be shorter because the payback will be shorter because Dogecoin will grow, because you maybe bought lower or whatever. Because if somebody buys at 10 cents, it's a payback of 6 years without factoring in growth, right? So the price will stabilize at some point where people feel it's fair. But the thing is, we want to give the best possible shot to the exiter, and the only thing that matters to them is the price. Now, how can we improve price? First, just do a very good token with very good tokenomics. But importantly, what we're doing is buy and accumulate by the protocol treasury. Every day, the claiming module wakes up with some TCY. And there are 4 sources of this TCY. Number one is those that haven't claimed yet. People will have a long time frame to claim. If you're listening to this, there's zero rush for you to claim. But people will have a long time horizon to claim. So those room payouts for that TCY is going to this claiming module. Also, unstaked TCY, because people can opt out of getting paid. Why would somebody opt out? Several reasons, but the main one is you are a fund, you're in the US, US is heavily regulated, you cannot cope with the tax of having to declare those payouts. So perfectly fine, just opt out, and that TCY's share is going back to the claiming module. Also, protocol-owned TCY, if you have what it's been buying up from previously, that also is getting paid. And finally, there's a pool of TCY with Rune, which is swapping. That TCY there is also getting paid. That also goes to the claiming module. And finally, the swap fees between Rune and TCY. They're not going to the LP. They're not going to Torch's treasury. It's also going to the claiming module. And every morning, then it wakes up with a lot of TCY and now gets paid a lot of Rune. What it will do with that Rune is actually buy more protocol-owned TCY. Now it accumulated more, so next day it will buy a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And what that's doing is actually creating relentless, price indiscriminate buy pressure, which is a great thing for somebody entering the token to model, because you always know there's at least one buyer every day. Now, it might not sound like much. If we have 25%, like the claiming module has 25%, which is pessimistic, I think, of TCY, maybe it's like $2,000 a day, $3,000 a day right now with current price movement. It might not sound like a lot, but if TCY is at 20 cents, the pool will be like $1 million deep, a little bit more. That's a 0.3% increase in price every day. Now, it keeps buying, and then at some price, somebody will be willing to actually sell. So again, the price will stabilize at some point, but that point will be slightly higher because there's this relentless buying all the time. And that a new buyer can actually model, be bullish about, and also buy today, help others exit because he knows there will be this last resort buy for him as well. So it just moves the balance point a bit higher. So now the exiter, even if they took 1 year to claim and they might say, oh, I didn't get my payouts for a year, you didn't get the payouts, but the price is 10 cents higher, my brother. A 1 year payout is 1/60th of what's owed to you. The price being 10 cents higher is 10%. It was 10%, 10x better for you that we did this way. So that's why it's designed that way.
So just and you kind of said this, but just to clarify for people that might wonder, if you don't until you claim your TCY, you are not getting paid any yield.
Correct. And we couldn't send your TCY directly. People ask that as well. Well, why don't you just airdrop it? We would love to, but we only know your Bitcoin address, my brother. TCY lives in Torture. I have no way to send it to you. You need to actually claim it. But then we got the idea, okay, while it's claimed, if we have this share, what do we do with it? And yes, we could accumulate it. That would have made it very hard to design the TCY token. It would have taken us at least another month because you have to design how the reward is not fungible for the TCY token, right? You have this claiming position that's accumulating rune, and when they claim the TCY, they claim the rune. But that would have taken us 1 or 2 months more to code because now you're dealing with membership units, kind of like a pool is, but different. But second of all, it's just worse for you. I paid you what, like 1 cent on the dollar? How about we just make the pool have a much better price for you if you want to exit?
Yeah,
that's much better
makes
value proposition for you.
Yep, makes and like you said too, the game theory behind it is that the person that is kind of, let's say, has a negative outlook on TCY and maybe their whole outlook of Thorchain has been, deteriorated by everything that's happened. They could care less about the actual yield itself. They care more about the price action of TCY.
And they want to come and exit. And you want to let them. And you want to help them. I don't want to give them the worst possible deal. I want to give them the best possible deal. And the best possible deal is there's liquidity every morning buying, and that makes everybody at peace to have the token actually stabilize at a higher price because everybody knows every morning with coffee, the protocol is buying some TCY. So if you're an exiter, exit. Like, all the power to you. It's your money. It always was. I'm very sorry it's not as much as you'd like, maybe, if you're selling below $1. Well, actually, interestingly, we dollarized the debt in the snapshot of, whenever stuff got halted in January. And that's the reference price we're using to calculate what everybody's owed. But since then, Bitcoin and ETH have gone down and everything else has gone down. So actually today, a TCY holder would be made whole at 50, 55 cents. And the BTC holder at 70, 75. No, I think now 75 to 80 cents, roughly. So that's awesome. That means if we can achieve these 20 to 30 cent TCY quickly, ETH victims are already made whole, half if they wish to exit. It's amazing. Yeah, it's again, nobody's getting scot-free. Everybody will have scar on their knees, the protocol included, now with this 10% overhead. But I think out of any other outcome, it's really the best. And I only got, again, I'm a fucking competitor, man. I only got involved to try and help people. And I'm only doing this with the effort we've been putting into it because I really think this is the best choice. And anything else sucks. I read every other proposal. I hope if somebody's unpleased with Prop 6, you go and read the other ones. I tried thinking any other way out. You can also see the Chapter 7 style. Just let's give everything back. Everything is objectively worse. Any way you cut it, it's objectively worse for you and for everybody else and for the world. So I think I hope people listening and on the fence about am I positive about TCY? You're negative. I hope you come back to this camp and you help us, because we need every hand we can get taking water out of the ship with a bucket.
Yep. Yeah. And, one thing about this solution is that it actually is a very optimistic outlook. It's to say, if we all work together and the protocol grows, everybody can get paid back because, the protocol itself is good. And if you got into and you mentioned this before, you went into this with open eyes. You opened a lending position, or you got into savers. You got into all this with open eyes. There was a reason why you came to Thorchain to do these things. Like, there's plenty of other DeFi protocols that have collateralized lending of some form. So there was a reason you came into this space. And I think what's great about this proposal is it's to say, Thorchain has kind of survived probably the most, worst case scenario in terms of it getting ruined potentially. And now that it's survived that, here's a solution where, if you can believe that the protocol will continue, tomorrow and the day after, this is a way for everybody to equitably get paid back. Everybody takes a small haircut, in the short term, but in the long term, it's one path to potential success for everybody. One thing I wanted to, you talked about the, how it kind of buys itself and the protocols buying TCY. I saw you put out these two diagrams and you kind of explained the first one through your last explanation, but the second diagram talks about STCY. And obviously gets a little bit into the weeds of let's say financial technologies or financial strategies. But what's the deal with STCY and how it may be used on Ruggira, and how might that impact TCY and the different players in the game? The people that are going to obviously get TCY from claiming, from their previous debt, and then people who may buy TCY at launch.
Maybe pin on the spaces the diagrams.
Yeah.
I think that would be useful. But first, on the first diagram, a few things of note, because it will matter. When you claim, it actually auto stakes your TCY, so you don't need to do 2 transactions for that or spend any Rune. You just claim, your TCY is now staked under your Thor address that you shared with the chain, and now you're getting paid Rune to your wallet directly. You don't need to claim the rewards. So that's typically how it goes. You have your TCY staked, and then every morning there's Rune now in your wallet that appear magically. It happens gaslessly, and it's important for little positions. So we really wanted to make sure that was the case. Now, if you want to send it or swap it, to sell it, or just move it to another wallet, you have to unstake it. So you unstake it, now you can send, now you can swap. And you can restake it later, you or whoever bought it. Now, the thing is, some people might want one of two things. Number one is just double down. They like what TCY is doing, the work we've done, so they might choose to take their TCY and put it in this auto-compounding contract people in the Ruggira ecosystem are building, the guys from Auto Ruggira. And what this will do is actually you put the TCY in the contract. Now the contract gets paid Rune, and every day that Rune is like the claiming module, remember, it's buying back itself. Very similarly, but now for the users, it's using that Rune to buy up more TCY that will be now split between everybody that put their TCY in the auto-compounding contract. So essentially, one STCY will always be worth more than one TCY as soon as they start to be buying up. Kind of like WST ETH, if you want to go look at that. If you go in CoinGecko, you put WST ETH, essentially it's ETH that's staked, that's getting paid more ETH, and that position is wrapped into this non-rebase token called wrapped staked ETH. So wrapped staked ETH will always be worth more than ETH. Right now it's worth like 20 or 30% more because it's the reflection of how much more ETH it has accumulated over these last few years. So similarly, one STCY might end up being worth 1.5 TCYs in the future. So now you have your STCY, and when you redeem in the auto compounding contract, now you get the 1.5 TCY in return. You see? And great, now you can go and sell it, or you could have sold the STCY directly. Now, the second problem to solve is that if you want to use Ruggiero products, let's say I want to put a sell order, right? I want to put a sell order of TCY when it's at, 50 cents. So I don't have to think about it. When it hits it, I'm out. Well, the big problem there is that if I am giving it to a contract, that contract is getting paid the RUN, not me. I don't have the TCY. So that TCY would be losing money but while waiting for the order book to be fulfilled, which would be money that would kind of help me get paid those 50 cents or better, right? So now, if you do it with STCY instead, during the time the order is sitting in the order book, it's actually accumulating value and making it either more likely that it hits 50 cents sooner, or you can, every 3 or 4 months it hasn't hit. Now you move it to 51 cents because it's accumulated some rewards, or 52 cents or whatever. So taking some of the opportunity cost out. Now, because of this, actually all of the Ruggiero products will not use TCY. They will all use STCY for anything. So you go, you put your TCY, get your STCY out, and now you can use it for anything. For instance, one of the things I recommend is if you need some of your sats back, but you also believe TCY would perform well, there will be over-collateralized, interest-bearing, quite vanilla, normal lending on Ruggiero. The lending we should have had from the beginning, if you ask me. I actually pushed for some more like traditional lending back then. But lending is, we've seen Aave, we've seen other protocols, it's tried and true. Now you can take your STCY, take 1/3 of it out in BTC. Now you've been paid some amount, and now you let STCY do its thing. And then if it goes up a lot, now you can actually get more lent out to you, and more lent out to you, and more lent out to you. And then if you get liquidated, you already got a lot of BTC as it went up. Or if you don't get liquidated and it's $1 now, you can just pay your loan, get the TCY, sell it, get your full dollar back. But you weren't waiting with 0 sats. So that's kind of like if somebody wants to actively manage it, I think that's what I would do. Now, I would like to mention, I don't have any RUN. We have one validator that came in after ThorFi. We don't have any LP position, zero position. We were able to find this solution because we're out of the soup. Everybody's cooking in the soup, getting burnt. And we're outside of the soup, and we're able to kind of say, okay, this is what we should do. And I think that's one of the advantages of us getting involved. We are looking forward to, now that things are more straightforward, to enter a largish position. So I believe in what we cooked, but just wanted to say that that's kind of the reason why we are able to be so objective, in a sense. But yeah, that's what STCY is, which is the second diagram that pinned here.
Yeah, and who is, because I think this is going to be kind of a follow-up question to that, who is building, and in the diagram, it also talks about, the lending and perps. Who is building all of this stuff? Is it the same team? I think a lot of people would say, is it the same, ThorFi, ThorChain team that's building, STCY and, STCY perps, STCY, collateralized lending? Who is building that, and where will it kind of be sourced from?
All of this is from the Ruggiero teams. Those come from what used to be Kujira, that it's a chain that failed for other reasons. And these people are building all of the contracts. Now, you don't need an STCY lending contract specifically. It's just a lending contract, and there happens to be STCY as another token to use a lending contract with. So all of these are just things from the Ruggiero team that even the auto compounding contract is something that already existed. We just made sure it was also compatible with TCY.
Yeah. I think that kind of leads us into a good discussion about what do you see as Thorchain kind of becoming in the long run? You've got Ruggiero, which is now building a lot of things on the app layer for Thorchain. With the emergence of TCY, I could see a lot of people saying, well, who is going to own Rune? Like, it is the average, kind of retail user who comes into Thorchain, why would they, buy Rune? Why would they buy TCY? Would they even buy Rune? Or is Rune now, mainly for people who want to bond, or for the LPs? How has the emergence of TCY kind of changed the dynamic of Rune, and how do you see that affecting Thorchain in the long run?
So something important is all of this is not zero sum. That's important. And most of the 10% drop in revenue to bonding and LP was already factored in by the market, if you ask me. I think the equity that will be built by TCY will be larger. So I actually think it's going to be positive sum for Rune. But we'll see, I think, when we launch. Now, importantly, way more rewards go to bonding Rune than go to TCY. So Rune will always be higher market cap by at least a factor of 3 or 4 than TCY, probably even 5 or 6. But then you say, okay, then why would somebody hold Rune? Well, because you're front running those guys. You don't have to bond to be exposed to people bidding on Rune to compete on the bonds. You can do that earlier, and now you're exposed to their buying pressure when they come in and want to buy, gobble up more to run the validators. So a bet on Rune is a bet on 2 things: the TVL expanding and volumes growing. Now it has a different behavior. You can either bond it, but now you have you're kind of locked up for a while, and you have some running costs that you're paying someone. You can hold it. Now you're max flexible with the most liquid asset there is, pretty much, a very, very liquid asset. Or you can switch it for TCY, which gets exposed to more yield, but it's less liquid. So choose your poison. All 3 are a valid choice depending what you want. Most people, I think, will do all 3 to hedge each other because they just have different benefits. They're different tokens. So that's kind of what I see. Now, what is Rune in the future? Well, Rune will be a booming cash flowing business, decentralized business, permissionless business. So as Ruggiero expands, more chains are added, Maya also grows, we both get integrated into more and more wallets, this cash flow will increase. And the way to get exposed to it is buying Rune to bond it, holding Rune to front run it and be very liquid to enter and exit, so be more of an active trader, or hold TCY. So it will be up to you. But at some point, people say, oh, so Rune is worth 0 and TCY is now worth 3 billion or what? No. When somebody's buying, they will be seeing what TCY is worth and what Rune is worth versus what they fundamentally should be worth. And if one is too expensive versus the other one because it had higher demand, people will start buying this one because it's just cheaper. So they will come at some sort of balance. TCY will be more volatile, so it won't be that fixed of TCY is always 20% of the market of Rune. No, it will be jumping from 15 to 25 to 15 to 25 to 15 to 25 to 15 to 25. But if it goes to 30% of market cap of Rune, people will just sell TCY to buy Rune. Conversely, if it's less than 10%, I think people will sell Rune to buy TCY. Now people say, oh, so this is all sell pressure of Rune. We're going to die. No. Actually, 3 reasons why not. Number 1, TCY doesn't have another market. You don't have it listed anywhere. What that means is when people swap Rune to buy TCY, there's no counter transaction that will be done by an arbitrage bot buying TCY elsewhere, selling it here now that it's more expensive, getting that Rune and selling it on the market. There's not that counter trade. So unless there's a willing trade TCY seller at that exact time, which arguably they were already there anyway to sell, actually the Rune buy was price neutral at best. Oh, but what about the TCY payouts? They're getting 10% of fees in Rune. Yes, that Rune came from at most a day ago by a swapper paying fees. It's also price neutral. And actually, what happens when people swap Rune to buy TCY is because there's none of these counter trades happening, TCY price just goes up a little bit. That's where the equity went. Now, the only way that Rune can actually make it back into the market to be sold then is if TCY price is lower than at launch. But that's why we're launching it at 10 cents, because then it will stay at 10 cents or go up to 15 or 20 or 25 or even 30 maybe. Well, that actually is taking room from the market and putting it on the pool, and it's staying there. The TCY price appreciation means it's gobbling up Rune from the market. Maybe I was not being heard on the space because I got a call. But it's gobbling up Rune from the market into the pool, and that Rune stays in the pool. So it's actually, if TCY performs very well, it's actually fixing more and more Rune from the market into its pool, which is actually positive. We actually don't want it to be that much. That's also why it's shallow, which is another thing. Because it's shallow, it cannot have a big effect on Rune price, the buying and selling of TCY. It cannot, because TVL is just so low.
But that being said, Rune can have a pretty significant impact on the TCY price, because TCY's only market is based in an LP that has Rune in it, right? So if Rune, theoretically goes up, 3x in price, now the USD value of TCY, assuming there's no trading at all, now goes up 3x as well.
Right. Yes, sir. Now there will be more and more willing sellers the higher you go. So if Rune goes 3x, TCY won't follow it entirely, but it will follow significantly.
Right. So there's a lot of, I think what you're getting at is that there's a lot of like positive factors that are kind of bouncing off of each other. The fact that it's kind of got that basic yield is like the baseline of everything, and then everything else is just kind of, almost cherries on top, and then it's all kind of growing. In a long run scenario, it's just continuing to grow. One question I saw from TCY Bull is about the TCY backed loans. Will they be auto repaying?
So that would not involve STCY. Somebody would have to do a new contract, and that new contract wouldn't have this STCY, would have TCY instead. And you could have that happen where you have the TCY, and instead of it being STCY where it's not worth more, it's TCY, which can also be worth more, but now the payout is used to pay down your debt or your interest. So yeah, it could happen, but that's a separate contract that would have to be developed.
Cool. Yeah. And so the launch is next week. Is there a hard date for that launch that people can look forward to, or is that going to be announced later?
Come again? Sorry.
There's so you're saying that TCY is going to launch next week, right? Is there a hard launch date for that? And if there isn't, will there be an announcement of a hard launch date so that kind of everybody has a chance to know exactly when things are going live?
So what we're waiting is for the 3.5.0 cutoff by 9 grams. I'm not sure. I have to check on Discord if they already did the cutoff or not. Tomorrow we have the engineering call, all hands on deck, so there I can find out if it's not done yet. Essentially what 9 grams has to do is say, okay, this is the version. We're not changing anything on it anymore. It's all tested. It's all legit. And now provide a block height a week later for the upgrade. It could be done sooner. The problem is if you have people that integrate Thorchain, you have Trust Wallet, Binance, Thor Wallet, ThorSwap, Shapeshift, Maya, everybody integrated Thorchain. And if you put the date to short, people start to get pissed that they weren't able to upgrade in time. You gave too little notice, and you start running into those kind of troubles.
So essentially, if someone's looking, because I know a lot of people will ask, if someone is saying, "Hey, I want to know before this all happens," you can just keep an eye on, obviously on X, it's going to be everywhere. And then Thorchain Discord, all the different Discords that are out there, they could look forward to something and still be like a week ahead of it actually going live in terms of the block height, right?
Yeah, everybody will know the block height. I'm working with Orion from 9Realms on the kind of protocol to launch it. So we have to, some emirs already halted. We have to halt TCY trading first as well. Then it's launched. People cannot claim yet. We will actually first seed the pool with a $600,000 pool depth. Once that's seeded, we'll say, in 2 hours we'll on halt, and then in 2 hours we'll on halt. So even at the block height, it's not like people can now claim and swap. We will enable claiming and swapping maybe a few hours, maybe a day later, depending on when the treasury seed liquidity is added. Okay. What we want to make sure is as soon as people can claim, people can buy and sell. That's something we want.
Right. And I think a lot of people will wonder, how that launch day will look. So I'm glad you covered that. And then in terms of, where people can claim and where people can buy and sell, is that going to be something that's kind of ubiquitous on any UI that wants to integrate it? Is there a singular UI, for doing that? I think a lot of people will wonder, like, okay, launch day is coming. Where do I go?
Yeah. So if you have a favorite UI, reach out to them and see, when will they be ready with TCY stuff. Any UI can support it. Any UI can work with it. There will be affiliate fees for the swaps as well, so they can even benefit from it. Any UI can do it. I know of several that are working on it for a while. Yesterday came out with a great picture of how it's looking in their Stage app. But there will also be an official one on thorchain.org that the Auto Compound guys are actually helping us build. And it will be probably, I think, tcy.thorchain.org. Don't quote me on that. I have to check with Orion what's the final one. But in the thorchain.org site, there will be a TCY button. You click that, and it will take you to the official site. So be sure to triple check, guys. These types of moments are perfect for scammers. Triple check. There is zero rush to claim. Zero. You can rush 1 day later, 5 days later, 2 months later. No problem. Take your time. Make sure it's official. Don't connect your wallet or input your seed phrase in some random place. Be very, very careful. But the thorchain.org will have kind of this official one, and you can use whatever feels best for you, or you can wait for your favorite UI to have it online. I'm sure most, if not everyone, will include it, and that's it. Easy peasy. It's very easy to integrate TCY. It's just you have Thor.rune is Rune. Now you just put Thor.tcy. That's TCY. Gas fees are still paid on Rune, but everything is still either a message send or a message deposit, where the quantity is now just Thor TCY, and the gas remains Thor Rune. You can swap to and from. The memos work exactly like swapping. Normally, you can add affiliate fees, everything. So it should be pretty straightforward. Honestly, I think it's if a UI doesn't have much else to do and they're not like busy with tickets or some other feature they're rolling out, if they focus, this is a 1 week lift.
Cool. And kind of on that similar line of questioning, TCY Bull also asked, what if a wallet doesn't support TCY claiming, which I think is a better way to phrase it would be, what if you look through the options of UIs, you're on a wallet that's not supported by any of those UIs and you want to go and claim TCY? Is there a manual way to do it, or do you kind of have to export your wallet into something that's supported?
I would just wait. Like, it's the easiest way to make mistakes is to rush and kind of do things yourself. You could, but if you already can, you'd already know how to do it. If you don't know how to do it, I would recommend for you not to find out, because you might make a mistake, and that mistake will be more costly than just waiting a little bit. I would suggest just reach out to the UI that you usually use and ask them, like, harass them for support, or go to another UI and connect your wallet there. But again, be very careful. Verify links 3 times from, X and our website and somewhere else. make sure things are legit, ask around, open a help desk ticket, everything. Because making mistakes or going into a UI rushing can be detrimental. Again, TCY is a long-term token. You have a super, probably 4 to 6 year time horizon to claim even. Take it easy, no rush, all's good. Take it easy.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure you're super busy, so I appreciate you doing this, and I think we covered a lot of different aspects of TCY, and I think kind of two big things to leave people with would be don't rush. Like you said, this is a perfect moment for scammers, and you should be pretty confident that there are people who are bad actors that are watching all of this stuff happen. So you obviously just need to be aware of all these things, and if you get hit with messages that there's some sort of like TCY airdrop or something, you should be extra vigilant about making sure that you're going to the right places and just being careful. There's no rush to do anything. So any closing thoughts from you? Anything you want to leave people with outside of that?
Just do your research. Take a look at what we built. I think it's mindful, and if you feel something's unfair, you probably haven't looked deep enough. There's so many people working on this that care about doing the right thing. I'm not telling you to trust us or anyone, but I do urge you to have an open mind and open eyes, and take a look. And if you think you could help or contribute, please do. We need all the hands we can get. And I'm just excited, a bit nervous, but excited about next week. Looking forward to a successful, uneventful launch.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope it all goes well. I'll obviously be kind of closely looped in, and we're working on getting TCY on LeoDex, so it's ready for everything as well. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be on this and answer all these questions that I know a lot of people have been wondering about when it comes to TCY. Hopefully we answered a lot of those questions, and thank you for doing all of this in general, because like I think we started this out, you didn't need to do this, and it's actually kind of, in a self-serving way at least, against your own interests in terms of what you do. But in terms of your beliefs, I think your mindset about this space and what it means is why you're doing all this. So thank you for all the hard work, sir, and we all appreciate you.
Our pleasure. It's been an amazing experience also working on this and working with people we admire and giving back to an ecosystem that gave us what we are, and hope it goes well. But don't thank me. It's not. We're not out of the bush yet. There's still a long way to go.
Humble as always.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for listening and for coming online, guys. Thank you, Cal, for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you guys soon.
All right. See you guys.
See
Bye-bye.
All right. We're all good.